In a world filled with conflict, in a universe comprised of differences, there's one thing that absolutely everything shares in common. We all exist. Including two guys named Jack and Michael, who like to chat about that very thing over a good cup of coffee. Let's pay them a visit, shall we?
Existence Brewing.
Glad I made it in. There's the line. All the way out the door.
You know what you're supposed to say when someone comes up and taps you on the shoulder and says, "Excuse me, is this the end of the line?" You say, "No, it's the front. We're all standing backwards." That's an old one.
You know, over the weekend I was at a fast food restaurant, and they said, "Could we get a name for the order? A good name for the order?"
There we go.
You were the first person I thought of.
How about Constantine? Is that a good enough name for you? I'm sorry, is that your name, sir? Well, you didn't ask for my name. You just said a good name. Can I get a good name for the order?
Yeah, right.
How
Constantine.
How about Shecky Wyderski? Does that do it?
The sad thing is, I was the only one in that restaurant at the time. So I'm looking around going, I'm the only one here.
Well, yes, sir, but it's a rule, and we've been talked to before by our boss. There was a Starbucks where I used to hang out. God, they would close the doors. They were supposed to close at 9. They would lock those doors at like 8:40 some nights and turn off the front lights and stuff. I'm like, are you guys supposed to do this? I was still in the store because I was their pals, you know. But I just be like, are you guys supposed to be doing this? Like, this is just 20 minutes. Like, I can see fudging, you know, when I worked as a kid at a place like this, we fudge 2 or 3 minutes to be like, oh, we're supposed to close at 9. No, it's 8:57. Oh, it's good enough, you know, but 20 minutes? I mean, that's quite a stretch. I mean, I'm guessing as soon as your manager finds out, this is going to be a problem. Like, you can't close the store 20 minutes early every night when you're working. Well, they usually did, so.
Well, in their luck, Howard Schultz would be cruising through town in his Tesla.
Oh God, Howard Schultz. Yeah, no, he's. I don't really know what to say about Howard Schultz. Is he still involved? Wasn't he still like half CEO or some kind of thing, or some sort of advisor?
Like advisor emeritus, some kind of made up title.
Yeah, some kind of, or he's a barista emeritus. Or something like that.
He's the dean of baristas.
Well, I mean, he's one of those guys in the business world, you know, that everybody laughed at. And when the Starbucks thing decided to escape the confines of metropolitan Seattle, and he's going to start opening up stores, you know, all around, people were just like, no, it'll never happen, because nobody in their right mind is going to pay, at the time, $4 for a cup of coffee every day. Boy, could he not be wrong. They don't call it disposable income for nothing, and people are still scraping up, you know, $9 from somewhere to buy these things every day. I don't know. We don't have anybody at my work, that is an everydayer, but one of the guys in the newsroom will come in with one every so often. I quit. I'm done.
That's right. You went cold turkey.
Never. Oh yeah. I dropped off significantly. You know, I built a pretty big wagon during the pandemic. I just sort of used it. It wasn't for any reason specifically. I wasn't concerned about going into the stores and catching something or anything like that. I just used it as kind of a springboard. It was like, well, you know, this just seems like a good enough time. The places are going to be ushering you out. Part of the whole thing was loitering in there and chatting with people, and they're not going to want you to do that now. So it just seems like a good time to scale back. So I went from 2 a day, every day, so like 14 a week, to like one or two on the weekends, like Saturday, Sunday. And then for about a year or so that lasted, and then I was just done. I was just like, yeah, no, let's just not do this anymore. It's time.
You know, Jack, I will say about you that you are definitely somebody who I think could be a model citizen for creating not just a pattern, but like what is the word I'm looking for? A routine. You are a model citizen of someone who can establish a routine and really stick with it pretty well. I mean, because you've been going to the gym pretty regularly now too.
Yeah, I'm one of those people that when on the rare occasion that I put my mind to something, it will get done. Like, it's not a matter of if it'll get done. It will happen. But, you know, quitting things is different than accomplishing things, because we look at quitting something as an accomplishment and yet we're not doing anything. And I always felt like that was enormously counterintuitive. It's just like, it's so easy not to do something. Why is it so hard then to actually like just sit idle? Because that's all you're being asked to do in the case of not smoking, not drinking, not, you know, eating unhealthy foods. When you exercise, you actually have to do something. This requires you to say, I'm going to get up and go to the gym, or I'm going to get up and run 5 miles, or I'm going to get up and walk the trail today, or whatever it is that you're looking to do. I always assigned it to a mountain, you know, just the biggest things we can see. I'm going to climb that sucker, you know. But in the case of, I don't want to smoke right now or today or ever again for that matter, I don't think, or I don't want to drink, or I don't want to eat these cheese puffs because they're bad for me. We're literally talking about, okay, well, that's not doing something. What could be easier than sitting idle and not doing something? You have no problem not climbing the mountain every day. Fuck it, it's a lot of work. I don't want to do it, right? So, but we can't coax ourselves into the same position with the cheese balls. We just, no, I got to eat these. They're in front of me. And so to me, it's kind of this magic trick about human psychology where you blend, you know, things that make sense with things that don't and turn the tables on them, kind of. And so I've told the story about how I quit smoking before on the podcast, right?
I don't think you have. I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah, so I didn't smoke for very long, but, you know, growing up as a teenager, you know, my siblings were already alcoholics and they did drugs and, you know, I was never touched the stuff ever. I saw what it did to them. I saw what fools it made them into. That was really the thing. It wasn't so much any of the physical degradation that occurred, because that happened later. My sister literally died. She like succumbed to substance abuse. And my brother had a lot of mental issues as a result of it too. But it was mostly just when they would get wasted, I just thought, you know, what a bunch of fools. Like, you're here and the experience of being here, even if you're like having a hard time, you know, strife is precious, you know, it's something to go through, you know, you have something to do while you're here. Aren't you fortunate? And you're just pissing all over that. You just want to get wasted and just get zomboed out. So I never wanted to follow in their footsteps. And so I never did those things, but I still needed a vice. It seemed like, you know, because I didn't drink, I don't do drugs, and I got this long hair and I like rock and roll music. And it's just like, well, I got to have something. So sadly, I picked up the habit of smoking when I was near 18. And I remember my body said, all right, okay, you know, you're young. And I literally remember having this conversation with my body because it talked to me. It said, okay, you know, this is not good, right? But we also know it looks pretty cool, especially on you. Got to admit it. We're going to let you have this, but only for just so long. And then when it's time to quit, we will let you know. And when we tell you it's time to quit, that's it. Do you understand? We mean it. There'll be no mousing around with it. There'll be no, well, maybe for a little bit longer. You are to quit the moment that you get that signal. And that signal came about 7-8 years after I started in the winter of 1999. And I remember it like it was yesterday. And it was like, okay, there's the signal. And the last one, I was halfway through it and I butted it out and I said, that's it. And then, of course, it became, well, how are you going to deal with the reality of not smoking, though, Jack? Like, because this is going to be difficult. And so what I did was I took the scene from the movie Superman 3. Have you ever seen that movie?
Oh, yeah.
So, you know the scene in the junkyard where Bizarro Superman shows up and then suddenly Clark Kent comes out of him and they have that battle royale to see who wins?
You're talking about the Sun Superman, right?
No. This is Superman 3. The Sun one is 4. Superman 3 has the Richard Pryor. And he gives him he gives him the kryptonite that has the tar in it, and it turns him bad. It turns him into, like, you know, Epstein Superman.
Okay.
And he's flying around doing all these miscreant things, and then suddenly, like, the good part of him jumps out of him in this junkyard, and they have it out. And there's an unedited version, the original version, where, like, the bad Superman sends Clark through this thing in the junkyard, and, like, meat comes out the other side, like it ground him up into like chopped hamburger and stuff. And then they cut that out from later versions because they obviously thought it was too graphic. I did at the time. I was like, wow, that's pretty graphic for a Superman film. But anyway, I used that as the inspiration for how to quit smoking, because it was basically, okay, look, this Bizarro Superman chump is an idiot. He's just that, you know, he's a chump stain. We don't want anything to do with him. Okay. He's the one that smokes. We don't. And you are not going to lose. And that was it. I mean, every time that I thought, even for a second, well, let's have one. No, you are not going to lose to him, because the second that you take one puff, you've lost to him.
Wow.
And that's it.
That's powerful.
And so well, I mean, it's funny what we identify with, or what we choose metaphorically, or what we choose, you know, when we're trying to go through this. But again, there was also that lassoing around the whole notion that, you know, okay, Jack, we're talking about not doing something. Here you are going, I really wish I would smoke a cigarette. Yeah, but it'd be so much easier to not do that, don't you think? Give yourself a break. Laze around today. There's no reason to lift your hand to your mouth anymore. You don't need to. It's okay. So I've just always had a really abstemious nature. And like I said, whenever the chips are really down and I decide I'm either going to A, absolutely do something, or B, absolutely not do something, it either absolutely does or does not get done. I just wish I had that kind of ambition with a lot of things in my life that I don't really care about, because I find myself really being somewhat insouciant to a lot of things that matter to a lot of people, like climbing this illusory career ladder and making all this money and saving it. And, you know, and I don't really give a lot of stock to that, because it's all bullshit. It's not real. So it's not what matters the most. I mean, it can make life easier, I suppose, but what's that at the end of the day? I went in for a tooth cleaning yesterday, and the hygienist asked me, she said she'd been doing it like 34 years. And I asked her, I said, wow. I said, but you're never going to retire because you love looking at people's teeth and scraping their gums. And she was just like, oh, no, I want to retire. And then she said, when are you going to retire? And I just laughed out loud. I think I spit the x-ray thing out of my mouth. I was like, ha! I've retired. That's funny. Yeah, my 401k has like 4. We're on the 1 in my 401k, so I don't think there'll be any retiring for me. Plus, I don't want to retire. What am I going to do? I'm not the kind of person that, you know, I'm just not given to, you know, Jack had a 35-year career in radio broadcasting and then retired to the, you know, South Seas where he marlin fishes every day. Oh, fuck it. I'd rather work. I would rather go out into the world and actually do something that I felt like was somewhat contributive to something. You know, I would rather work to pass the time, honestly, than I would to just lollygag around. I mean, you need a break every once in a while, but
yeah,
retirement's overrated. Killed my mother, and I can vouch for that from several other people that I know. It killed their parents too. As soon as my mother retired, I was worried. I said, oh boy, because my mother was a hard worker. And the second she retired, I thought, what are you doing? I talked to her about it. I said, Mom, what are you doing? Like, why would you retire? Capricorn to the core that you are. She was a Leo sun, but man, I mean, she was all Cappy. I mean, work was fun to her. She loved working. And I just thought, why are you retiring? And she didn't know. she didn't know. She kind of, I think, slipped into like first gear dementia and was just like, I don't know. I mean, it just feels like the right time. It's what people do. I'm like, oh, Mom, but not for you. You got to be working. And as soon as she disengaged, the downward spiral opened up. The chasm was there and she fell in. And yeah, I suppose she lived another 10 years, but they were dismal, awful, dark years for her. So, and I know several other people that will vouch for the same thing, that'll say, yeah, I know when my mom retired, my dad retired, my aunt, my grandma, my grandpa, whatever, it killed them too. Because it does. You need to have something to do. And too often we retire thinking, oh, I'll get up and watch The View every day, and I'll do some quilting, and I'll do all these things that I've been wanting to do my whole life. And then you don't because you need to work.
The reason I'm playing this music is because
Now, what is this?
Sitting in here reminds me of you. The way you tell a story is very similar to the way Ken Burns tells a documentary.
Hey, it was just his birthday earlier this week. I'm no fooling, it was. It was Ken Burns' birthday earlier this week.
I was going to ask you, going back to the smoking situation, I was going to ask you a follow-up question.
Oh, okay.
But then we like transitioned into two other big topics.
Well, I'm sorry. What do you want to know about the smoking?
Life is about retirement and death, and something else about quilting. And then
we didn't talk about quilting. It was
just like went from smoking. It was a cold winter when Jack decided to quit smoking. And then his mom retired and died.
So the guy that the guy that does the birthday wishes on TV, you know him just as well as I do. We have the sound down watching him, but when he put Ken Burns up, we just knew exactly what he was saying. And Ken Burns is 75 years old today. The documentary filmmaker made one about baseball that I'm actually rather fond of. Yeah. We both know who that is.
Oh, we do, don't we? But no, I think when we digress, that's gonna be my cue to cue the
fiddle,
Ashokan farewell. Yeah.
What was your question about the smoking? Do you even remember?
Damn. Now I can't even remember. Okay, so like when you gave up smoking versus then when you gave up caffeine, because a lot of people would say that caffeine and nicotine are very similar animals to some degree.
Before you ask me, let me interject. I don't feel that I gave it up because of the caffeine. I'd switched to decaf like 9 years before I quit.
Oh.
What I really quit was the synthesized sugar, because I was drinking sugar bombs. And so the decaf coffee really didn't concern me. It was the 7 pumps of marshmallow syrup or the 7 pumps of chestnut praline or the 7 pumps of whatever I got that day.
That's what they got you with.
Yeah.
It was like
it was the sugar. Yeah.
It was like a bird feeder.
Sugar. Yeah. The synthesized sugar had to go. And that makes sense because my spirit animal is a hummingbird after all. And anybody listening is laughing their ass off right now. I go, yep, I could see that coming the way he talks. So, yeah.
Well, no, but like if you think about it, I think that is really what has made Starbucks what it is, right? I mean, it's those subtleties that persuade you out of your $8 for a cup of coffee. Because most people would say, cup of coffee isn't cost $8. And it's all of those things that go into the coffee that they put a price tag on. And ultimately, also, it's that experience that people have. Because I would imagine, you weren't somebody who just would pull up into a drive-thru. You wanted to go in and have a chat with your favorite barista.
And Howard Schultz always said that he was selling the experience. He was not selling the coffee. That was really what he was selling, was the whole go in and get to know them, and the sense of community. That's really, but just that whole thing where I go in and I'm part of the experience. He was selling the experience. Like my father, he was a good salesman, and he used to say, son, you sell the sizzle, not the steak.
Yeah.
And man, that's that salesman bullshit.
Yeah, you
And the
sell the
first
sizzle.
salesman 101, of course, is do anything you can to separate this person from their money. I remember getting that lesson from a salesperson that I worked with. Real nice guy. Super amiable and all that. But when it came to sales, man, he was cutthroat. He just said, say or do anything you have to, without spending money, of course, to separate this person from their money. And I would just think, what a ruthless son of a bitch you are. Like, this is the same thing that scammers do when they call little old ladies on the phone and tell them they've won a contest. I mean, it's the same MO. Say or do anything you can to separate them from a dollar bill so that you can benefit and they're a little bit less rich. That's a bullshit way to live, don't you think? So what salespeople, where salespeople rank in my life.
I can just hear the man from Zimbabwe calling you right now on your cell phone, and then him getting just an earful.
Yeah, it's pretty hard to fool me when you call and say, I've won some glamorous trip to somewhere or whatever. So, no, the funny thing about, it's not funny, I guess, but the thing about sating oneself with sweet things, it's the same, because sucking on a green nipple, every day, twice, a day, more times than that to finish a drink. But, having the Starbucks nipple in front of you all day long is the same thing as eating donuts or, M&Ms or any of this stuff. I mean, it's just that you're taking something that's a very basic pleasure, or a very basic need, human beings need to eat. And it's been widely suggested, in fact, I think it's basic biology, that the reason we have taste buds is not to enjoy food, but actually so that we can discern when food is in fact spoiled and we won't put it in our system. When leaves are bitter, we spit them out because that means they're poisonous and likely bad for us. When meat is rotten or dairy is curdled, we perceive it with our sense of taste so that we get rid of it, so that we expel it, and we don't take it into our body because it's harmful for us. But then, as the human condition takes over throughout, the millennia, suddenly we invent the cream puff, or, sugar comes along, or spices come along, of any, salt for one thing, or pepper, or, things that are tasty that we want in our mouth constantly. And that's what that is. See, that's the thing. If you could package a way to give people the sensation of the sweet and the eat without the actual putting it into your body and having it metastasize or metabolized into fat or whatever else is, now there's something that you'd go out and want to sell, right? Because that's what the experience is all about. Nobody is going to tell you, well, I eat because I like the feeling of being full, or I eat because it has anything to do with anything that happens below the soft palate. I mean, it's all about the taste, right? I mean, people who eat lots of sweets eat them because they're sweet, and that is satisfying to you. I'm a cake hound myself. Anything cake, I love. But it's so interesting that's why habits are such an interesting wing, I guess, of psychology, because that it's doing bad for your body, and you also know you're going to shit it out 24 hours later. That's the thing about I remember going over this with my brother years ago when we had like a $400 lobster meal somewhere at some fancy hotel in 1999 or whenever that was, and I was just like, this is ridiculous, because we're just going to shit this out tomorrow. It's just literally going to become fecal matter. So it doesn't even turn into anything. I mean, some of what we're eating will be transitioned into energy for our bodies to use and for our brains to use, and for, and so there is that, but then most of it will be a byproduct, and a stinky, sticky, shitty byproduct at that will just get expelled from the body. So why are we putting so much emphasis on the before when we really just want to forget the after?
Yeah.
Because the after is where the lesson is, I think, isn't it? So that's an interesting one. I mean,
speaking of which, you were talking about the evolution of taste buds and how it was really meant for us to be able to distinguish bad food from good food. One of the conversations I found myself in today was the smell of petrichor and rain, and how it was also an evolutionary response, because we can smell petrichor in the air better than a shark can smell blood in water.
Blood in the water?
Yeah. Isn't that crazy?
I'm not sure how we can actually fully substantiate that. First of all, I deeply resent a lot of those claims when scientists
first
come out
you
and
have
say
to find
like
a shark that can speak,
no.
and then a shark that can speak and not want to bite your face off. And
so we have to talk to Jabberjaws then.
You got to talk to a really nice shark. But no, it was an evolutionary advantage, because whenever you smell that nice hint of rain in the air, and we just had a summer rainstorm here, then just remember that is thousands of years of human evolution and your genetics, because you're able to essentially sense that there's water somewhere near you. And that was something that our ancestors and humans have evolved over millennia.
Of course,
so there
there's
you go.
Water near you.
And that's why it's so sweet.
You're made of 65 to 70% water. There's always water near you. It's all you're made of.
Yeah, but the smell is what we're getting at.
That word petrichor is definitely hot right now. You are like the third or fourth person I think that has brought up petrichor to me in the last month. So I don't know where that's coming from, but yeah. And I trust me, I love the smell of fresh rain as much as anybody, but the word is one that I take umbrage with, because petrichor sounds like something that has more to do with a Christian rock band than I mean, it's petrichor is weird to me, because it's like Petra means rock, literally, in translation. It's like so, but anyway,
it's going to be my new non-alcoholic beverage, and I'm going to name it petrichor.
Well, petrichor is kind of taken just by rain, and you're not drinking rain, so you'd have to come up with some really cool thing to prefix core with.
Okay.
Well, we'll think of it for you. So,
well, it kind of reminds me of persuasive technology.
Yeah, you were talking about this persuasive technology the last time I saw you off podcast too. So, this is apparently. Did you say this was a new term for an old thing that's still going on? Or
it's new to me, and I'm going to read you the definition of persuasive technology. It refers to any technology designed to influence users' attitudes or behaviors, often through subtle cues and design elements. These technologies leverage principles from psychology, such as social influence, and behavioral science to guide users towards specific actions or beliefs. Now, where might you find something that follows that definition?
So they're fucking with us, basically. That's what you're saying.
It is essentially identifying what they've been doing to us. Through any algorithm, any e-commerce, anything. It is all persuasive technology.
So I'll just say three quick things. We'll just, 3 quick bursts from yours truly. They were supposed to have stopped this, but in the 50s, I believe this was, they used to, some cinemas, the owners of some cinemas, as lowly and loathsome as they were, used to take frames of the film,
The underbelly,
and splice in the films of the actual movies, and splice in just 1 or 2 here and there little things they'd put in with the word Coke scratched on it, or Coca-Cola scratched on it. And it's designed, as the film goes by, you'll never see one frame. You'd never notice it. And it's designed so that your subconscious mind will see that frame because it will detect it, and it plants the seed of a Coca-Cola. I want one, and so it's time to go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby and get a Coca-Cola.
Yeah.
Phase 4 is, or was at least, a real thing that they used to play in supermarkets and shopping centers everywhere. It was disguised in music very often. And again, it was, in this case, audible messages that were designed to get you to purchase more groceries because it appealed to, again, the sensations that you want to make happy. So it was messages for any number of products that they wanted you to buy, or maybe they had an overabundance of. Phase 4 was designed to put you in a state where you would zombie out, basically, and just want to linger in the store and put more and more things in your cart. Now we circle back to, what did I tell you earlier that the nice man that I used to know who was a salesman told me? Do anything you have to separate them from their money.
Aside from spending your money or giving them money.
Yeah. So here we are, but I know when it comes to this persuasive tech, we're also talking about more than just ways to get people to spend their dough.
Yeah, in some cases it's just their time, and it's just their attention, really. I mean, that's when you really want to boil it down, that's what it is. And I think what it is we're surrounded so much by this persuasive technology. I mean, I would say that everything that is a device nowadays has some element of persuasion built into it. And it can be something as simple as a fitness app. It can be social media. It can be any form of e-commerce. And there's even educational apps where there's this sense of psychology to where people who are doing these games, I think you've seen them before, where there's this sense of achievement, and so you're leveling up, and the dopamine effect that you get from playing that game or whatever, it has a positive connotation to it. I think we've talked about last episode we talked about the sailing videos on YouTube, and how I was served sailing videos. Not a sailor, don't own a boat. I've never once typed in on my Google search bar how to tie a Windsor knot or whatever those. Jib. Yeah. How do I jib my Windsor? No,
how do I jib my spinnaker?
Yeah, how do I jib my spinnaker? And
sheep sham.
Yeah, and so really, I think then the question then becomes a lot of these things is it's like, there's a manipulation element to it. There's an addiction element to it. Data privacy is obviously something that I think society has become more and more aware of. But it's also, I think, one of those things where, like when we were first thought of the internet, I mean, I think you've shared this story before. One of the first things you used it for was e-commerce.
Yep. And it's still the primary thing I use it for.
And it's the primary thing you use it for. I think most people, use the internet now for e-commerce, but, like you even got a dopamine hit as a collector because now all of a sudden you didn't have to go to all these random places or, put on your itinerary when you go to a bigger city that you needed to check out this record store because you wanted to go find the Holy Grail. You could buy 5 grails that were on your list that people just swore up and down they don't exist in one afternoon.
Yeah, true. But I think, when we talk about persuasive technology, we're not talking about the technology. We are talking about the technology itself, but of course it's all about not only how it's programmed, but who's programming it. Because we tend to give technology a lot of autonomy, especially with artificial intelligence taking the forefront on everything. But remember, artificial intelligence is still a programmed element. It's not, it may have the ability to put feelers out and research, ostensibly on its own and, grow into something that it wasn't necessarily programmed to do or to be, but it still is a programmed form of intelligence, we could say, from the root. And this is interesting because it plugs into the story of our own genesis. We go back to, are we the same creation? I mean, are we truly creatures that are intrinsically blessed with the ability to possess free will? Or are we really first and foremost programmable elements of a design who have some ability to make their own way through the experience that's been put before it, before the level, the stage that we're in right now? It's a fascinating question because as we become the creator, we get to ask questions that were foreign to us because we'd always been used to being the created. Certainly during heavy theological times, theologic reign. Now it's the other way around. Now we're asking questions that seemingly this God that we prescribed to us years ago would have asked itself, about where it came from because it's creating us. So they're fascinating questions, but, to me, there is something diabolical behind this because we know that it's designed to persuade you to probably more than anything spend money. I mean, as you said, linger.
Right.
But getting us to spend money is always the number one trick, it seems like. And then, spending time there may lead to an addiction that would lead to you eventually spending more money, I would guess. There's also probably a few factions, governmental, I don't know, maybe there's some weird things out there too, and they want to win over your mind. They definitely want to win over something in you that would give over power to their
it erodes autonomy, essentially.
Their ideology, their belief system, their belief structure, because social media is certainly good for that. We have these camps that we build, and we tend to linger in these circles. And then there are the trolls or the muckrakers who go out and they start trouble, and it only takes one. You've watched, I mean, I'm not a big social media person at all, but I've watched it happen. It's the old bad apple, it's the same thing because 45 people can be humming along just fine underneath some post. And all it takes is one asshole to come and blow the whole thing up. And the next thing you know, you have division, you have divide, you have hate, you have angst, you have anger, you have aggression, because one person has come along. And as I've told you the stories about the CIA, that's how they learned how to diffuse the peace march of the 60s when we were, that that time, I would love to see a time like that again, but I don't know that we'll ever see it because, first of all, the laws have changed and you can't put 20,000 people or whatever it was around the reflecting pool at the Washington Monument anymore. It's against the law. They won't let you do it. But also, they know how to break it up. And sadly, the formula to break up 10,000 peaceful protesters is one son of a bitch, one asshole that's specifically designed to go in and cause trouble. And then the narrative spins, see, because the world is watching and it's, wow, look at all these people that are demonstrating so peacefully on behalf of peace and for
it's like
peace.
A powder keg.
And the next thing you know, as soon as it turns violent, it's, oh, well, those horrible, terrible, hippie people with their long hair and they're just beating each other up and it's terrible. And it's just like, yeah, but they didn't start the shit. It was started on purpose. So
it was a psyop,
this is
man.
the same. Yeah, this is the same thing. This is one big ongoing psyop, I think, is right. This is exactly what this is. This is a campaign. This technology, this persuasive technology is a campaign against your psychology. It's a campaign against the state of your mind and your being to get you to do things that someone else wants you to do because it's in their better interest and not yours. And so this is all about being strong of mind and knowing how, I think more than anything, just like when to call it quits with cigarettes or coffee, when to unplug, when to say that's enough.
I think that's the biggest thing that I'm learning from this is, going back to the kind of the yin and the yang of this. And I think that there's definitely a dark factor to this that's very crazy. But then, I think, is persuasion a good thing? And can you benefit from being persuaded? I think one of the things that comes to my mind is like when you're on Amazon and it says, people who also bought this book bought these things as well. And those recommendations, I think can sometimes open your mind to new ideas or even, it's not even just a matter of like, I'm finding more and more that using persuasive technology, again, and this is a totally new concept to me, but I'm looking back at all these things in my life where I've used persuasive technology to my benefit. One of them, I think, is when like I'm into a new hobby and I'm wanting to learn more about something. Whether it be ufology, whether it be bonsai trees, or whether it be gardening, or whatever it might be, you can go through these little rabbit holes of pockets of interest and niche interest, and sometimes this persuasive technology really introduces you to areas that would have taken you previously maybe years to discover these new things and these new ideas. But in one fell swoop in 30 minutes, you've got 10 videos that are queued up on the right-hand side. Some of them are sailing videos. But, I mean, for the most part, you've got this ability to then really dive deep into whatever it is that you're into at that time. And, I think there's kind of a knowledge base there that you're able to tap into that you otherwise maybe wouldn't have.
For me, I think we circle back to a fundamental, universal, I don't know if it's a law, but it's a principle. We've talked about it before on the pod, which is intent. Persuasion sounds like a perfume. It probably is, but I mean, I can hear it now. Tori Spelling's persuasion. What is Tori Spelling wanting you to do when she's misting herself with this phenomenal scent? It's funny. There's another word that is a smell, and of course, I'm not going to remember it. It just came up, but it's a word for the smell of something that is designed to capture your allure. It's a French word, and I'm not going to remember it. But in any event, think about the meaning of the word persuasion. I think without maybe looking it up formally. I mean, to persuade somebody, how often does anybody persuade you in your best interest? I mean, to me, it seems like one of the rules of persuasion is trying to persuade somebody is always done from the other person's point of view. I'm trying to persuade someone else. I mean, I guess you could persuade oneself, but then that's just the old Ouroboros. You're just chewing on your own tail, so it doesn't really matter. But if I'm trying to persuade you, more than likely, I have something I want out of it. Even if it appears to be in your best interest, even if, well, gosh, I know Michael would really enjoy the, series on tying flies that, because I just think it'd be right up his alley. So I'm going to try to persuade him. I'm still wanting to do it for my own reasons, even though it's seemingly for you, it's not. It's to satisfy me thinking that you're going to like something and introducing it to you
or
through a persuasive measure.
And a persuasion really is an external. It's really just an external parties like a damn it, I thought I just lost the word. This is what happens. This is why I'm not on live radio anymore. It's a party, like it's a third party's ulterior motive.
Well, there are actually two main dictionary entries for the word persuasion. One is the action or fact of persuading someone or of being persuaded to do or believe something. The second is a belief or set of beliefs, especially religious or political ones. So again, that goes to a different kind of persuasion.
But what if you're persuading yourself?
Creole food is my persuasion. It's more my persuasion than Southern fried food, darling, so that's a different kind of persuasion. But I think my point is that it would be very unlikely to find a circumstance in life where the person doing unless it's to themselves, again, so we'll turn this on, it's a two-person philosophy, that it's not about the person who's doing the persuading's best interest, even if it appears, or even if they do have the best intent. And that's where I think it really, again, we can funnel so much of life back to that little word, intent. Intent is exceedingly important because our actions follow our intent. And persuasion to me is no different. So if YouTube is trying to persuade you to look at other videos on this subject that you're really rip-roaring about all of a sudden, you can absolutely persuade yourself into designing a silver lining about, well, I'm absolutely being pitched to here. They're trying to sell me left and right, but I'm enjoying it. So you can make that velvet lining for the same coffin look better, but it doesn't remove the fact that the intent is to get you to stay on YouTube and not do something else with your time.
Yeah.
And that absolutely is the intent. So I think, as we do with so many things, when we arrive at a crossroads and say, is this good? Is this bad? Erase it. It's always neither. Forget the judgment calls, because this is all about how it affects or impacts you as an individual living or experiencing this thing that we call life.
Yeah. Well, and what if persuasive technology? Okay, I'll let you finish there, and then come back to me, Ken.
I was just going to say, so boil it down to intent. Take a look and surmise what the other person's, who's behind this persuasion or this, perceivable persuasion, and what's their intent? What's the likelihood of their intent? If you can answer that question satisfactorily, you probably have your answer about what's really going on. But again, you can always persuade yourself to spin it a different way.
What if persuasive technology could be used by a person to curtail their own behavior and essentially achieve a goal? So, like, in this case, what if it could be used for an addiction?
Like to combat an addiction?
Yeah.
Or,
like to quit smoking.
well, the tobacco people aren't going to like that very much.
But that could still fall under the definition of a persuasive technology, as to where, you know,
Sure.
you set a goal for yourself, and it's no different than like a fitness app. Maybe you set a goal for yourself and you say, okay, I want to lose 30 pounds in the next 2 months. And then it recommends different ways that you can make those habits to then achieve your goal. And in many ways,
they probably already have something like that.
Well, I was going to say, in many ways, a fitness app is very much like that. But it is using persuasive technology for a person's interest or what they are knowingly. And I think that's, again, it goes back to, like you said, that intent, that intentional design, to where it's like, does the person who's being persuaded realize that they're actively being persuaded?
Yeah, but the fitness app, I mean, if I just to just stop on that one specific example, the fitness app is a foreign concept for me because I am my own champion in all things in life. It's great to have somebody cheering you on. It's great to have somebody believe in you. But at the end of the day, just from whatever premise Jack exists, I am always my sole guardian in that regard. I am my sole champion when it comes to making the things that I desire occur if they are within my power to do. I don't want a fitness app telling me these things. The treadmill at the gym is usable only for metrics. I'm interested in how many calories I've burned. I'm interested in how many miles I've stayed on the thing for. I'm interested perhaps in how fast my heart's beating at times because I'm just curious. I don't want any of their rah-rah bullshit because I don't feel persuaded by the machine to go on. I feel persuaded by something else. I don't know what that is. It's an intangible of my design, or it's an intangible that glues together or is a part of this experience that I'm in touch with as a result of the design. But it's not the fitness app. It's not the stuff that they have on the screen. I cover the screen actually with a towel when I'm on the treadmill. And
because you don't want Bezos to watch you sweat?
It's not. No, it's not that I'm worried about Jeff. He could learn a thing or two about sweating because I sweat like a freaking stuck pig at the gym. Because if I could commend myself for anything, it is that I work hard when I'm there. I am trying to accomplish a very basic goal, which is to maintain a weight that would see me fit into most of the clothes that I currently possess, that I already have, so I don't have to buy a whole bunch of new ones because that's a pain in the ass and it's expensive. And quite honestly, there's no reason why I should be any larger than I am now. It's indicative of me being, in a state of sloth. I'm being apathetic. There's no question about it.
Jeff Bezos kind of reminds me of Professor X from the X-Men.
Oh, I don't think Patrick Stewart would like to hear you say that.
I kind of feel
Jeff
like
Bezos is way more Lex Luthor who never lost his virginity than Professor X on any day. I don't. Maybe he's getting old now and he's looking, but he's definitely the guy who lost his hair in the accident in high school that wasn't his fault. It probably really was, but because that's the Superman story, right? Clark and Lex are fucking around and oh no, and then goodbye hair, and the next thing you know, he's an arch villain. Leave it to unscheduled alopecia to create a supervillain. I mean, of course that would piss somebody off enough that they would want to rue the world from that day forward. I have no hair, and I'm only a teenage boy.
Do you think people who don't have any hair sweat more?
I have a lot of hair and I sweat a lot from my hair and my forehead, but I sweat all over too. I'm just soaked at the gym.
I wish we could get Bezos on the podcast and ask him
I'm
how much do
glad
you
we don't.
sweat when you're running on your yacht on your treadmill?
Yeah, do you break a sweat going from one end of your yacht to the other? He probably has people that do that for him. You know what I mean? So
No, but going back, I think that, this persuasive technology, I feel, and I think also we've talked about AI in this regard as well, is that, the propensity is there for good. The propensity that is there for evil or malfeasance, if you will. But, I think that it's also kind of one of those things where the more and more we are surrounded by these things, I think the more necessary it is for us to better identify when it's happening to us and being able to knowingly engage in it or not. I always kind of, another analogy is I always kind of think it's interesting how anymore now the casinos that are advertising, like whether it be the sports books or just the, fill in the blank regional casino, they always have to have some kind of like a tagline there that's like, gambling is an addiction. If you need help, please call the gambling hotline. And, and I always think it's interesting how when somebody advertises a product, they also have to say, hey, by the way, this can actually kind of really ruin your life. So I know all the beautiful people that are in our commercial, and they're all doing all these great things, and they look amazing. You're not going to see any of those people here. This is actually a place where you're going to see a lot of indigents, and they're going to be people who you don't really want to associate with, and you're going to leave smelling like smoke. But come to our casino because MC Hammer is going to be playing his greatest hits this Friday night.
Yeah, and we've got a new like $200,000 jackpot that you have no chance of winning too, but some lucky dog is going to hit it. So, maybe it is deserving, sort of, as we zoom out of the question, who are we to judge so harshly what our actions are all about? I mean, is it so bad to linger for 7 hours on YouTube and watch hack videos? Or like recently, I know my girlfriend's been going through a health issue, so she's been home a lot from work, and so she's probably watched every kind of video that there is, and she's watching a lot of these game walkthroughs. What are those called? Game throughs or something like that. I don't remember what they're called, but you watch other people playthroughs is what they're called. You watch other people play video games instead of playing them yourself. Who's to say that that's a waste of time? I mean, that's all subjective. I think one of the theories about the human experiment, if you will, the human condition, or about this experience, is, though, that something wants to see, or something is curious enough to allow us to have all of the universal liberties that we are entitled to, which, if you look at it, even though we do seem to be stuck here and gravity is what it is, and there's all these physical laws that we can't seem to penetrate without heavy machinery or something else, and on and on and on, we are granted an awful lot of freedom before human beings step in and say, well, here's the codification of all the laws of this land where you can do this and can't do that. We are allowed an awful lot of what we call freedom. So just in general terms, just in, colloquially. So I wonder if the experiment isn't about seeing how much freedom we'll allow ourselves to take, because falling victim or falling prey, seemingly willingly, not even subconsciously, to a manipulative faction like this persuasive technology we're talking about, is giving up. It's kind of throwing your hands up and saying, well, this freedom thing's nice, but it's too much for me. I want to be controlled by something or someone else. And that's one of the things that we've seen repeated over and over and over again in collective human history is, I don't want to do this. I want to give over my control to a guard or government, or especially a religion. We've talked about that before too. Here is a book that has all of the answers in it, and you don't even have to read the whole thing cover to cover. Just read the chapters we tell you to after the sermon this weekend and listen to everything our guy tells you to do, and do that, and you'll be fine. Oh, thank God. Then I don't have to worry about this anymore. It's out of my hands. That's a dangerous position to be in, because you're circumscribing yourself and your own ability to make the determinations for yourself as to what it is you do and don't want to do with, again, the three gifts, the only three gifts, as far as I'm concerned, that we are truly given while we are here: time, or the perception of it; energy, and the choice to do with what you want to do with that energy, with said time. That's it. And you can't have the third without having the first two. It's very basic. But we're looking at a world that has, even probably without knowing it, just handed over a lot of that control. Probably isn't the best word, but that liberty, that inherent liberty that we are supposed to have to govern ourselves.
Autonomy.
And so I would urge people to take that back, because you don't really get the choice if you're American or Canadian or South African or Jamaican or whatever it is. Wherever you live, you're going to be governed by a set of rules or laws. And yeah, some of them are good ideas. They make sense. Others, maybe not so much. You'll also be governed by the byproducts, the patterns that are the byproducts of a world that is off the rails and has been for a long time. But nonetheless, you're governed by that. Why do you have to pay so much for gasoline? Why do you have to give the IRS so much of your goddamn money? Well, because they'll throw you in fucking jail is why. Or they'll seize everything you've got already, and they can't. They do it right now if they wanted to. So there are certain things that you are powerless to do anything about, seemingly. So why would you give away the powers that you still have, which are, by the way, much larger in nature than the ones that you seem to have just by default handed over? And this would be one of them. So yeah, awareness is everything. So I think an awareness of this persuasive tech is a good thing, but it's now down to us. How much of it will we recognize being reflected onto us, and will we actually unplug when it seems like the answer is that's enough? So in feeling a bit puckish at the moment, I'll just leave you with this. I think the gestation period for humans should be 5 to 10 years. Wouldn't that be miraculous? I mean, just the world's population, think about it, just immediately fifth. We got about 8 billion of us here now. If you had a 5 to 10 year wait before you popped one out, I mean, imagine all of the, talk about population control. I would love to see that. And I have gotten into an argument with my radio audiences before about this fact that the world has too many people in it. And a lot of them will call and tell me, oh, no, world can handle plenty more people. There's not enough people. That's a terrible notion. God wants as many bodies down here as possible. And, we go into these things. And I wouldn't necessarily disagree that 8 billion, for Dick Van Patten, 8 was enough. I would think for Gaia at this point, 8 billion would be more than sufficient. And again, it's not all about just the bodies themselves, but how the bodies intend to live, what they want to do. And when we talk about, again, nations like China that are westernizing rapidly, and we have live lobster tanks at Walmart that are getting fished out by noon, I mean, it's not sustainable. So I think that's a miraculous answer. We could all sit back tonight and pray for our alien friends to come down and render every woman with the, ability to carry a fetus for 5 to 10 years. That's the new gestation period for humans, because what a miraculous thing that would be. That's an easy answer. That's a solution to so many of the world's problems right there. Plus, imagine how happy women would be, getting to carry around your kid for 9 years before it popped out fine. Maybe men should have to carry him too. That'd be part of the deal. I don't know. It's just something I wrote down in passing one day.
As the women rejoice.
Well, I'm almost drowning. Your tears are my sea. Since they sent a posse to prosecute me.
Oh man, we're really cranking it up a notch today, aren't we?
Are we?
I like this. What is this?
This goes back to my teenage years. This little band called Dancing Hoods. And it's a song called Puppet Dancing.
All right, Jack, until we meet again.
Till then, sir, try not to be persuaded.
I'll try.
Does it make you feel holy? You got your own pride in Jesus.
Well, it looks like Jack and Michael have finished up their latest chat about all things existence. But if anything they said got your own Existence Brewing, be sure and catch their other talks at existencebrewing.com and drop them an email to share your thoughts using contact@existencebrewing.com.
Existence Brewing.